Hello, this is Pastor Rick, and I want to welcome you to the Sunday Forum for this Sunday, August the 17th, where our topic for this week, for the sermon as well as the Sunday Forum, is the power of words. Our title is exactly, Change Your Words, Change a Life. Change your words, change a life. Not only someone else's life, but maybe your own. I want to read, first of all, from James 3:16. James is summarizing the wisdom literature, especially Proverbs. And I'm going to read from Proverbs soon, because Proverbs mentions the power of the tongue all the time, both the positive and the negative. But here we read in, again, James 3, verse 6, how great a forest is set ablaze by a small fire, and the tongue is a fire. The tongue is placed among our members as a world of iniquity. It stains the whole body, sets on fire the cycle of nature, and is itself set on fire by hell. For every species of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by the human species, but no one can tame the tongue, a restless evil full of deadly poison. With it we bless the Lord and Father, and with it we curse those who are made in the likeness of God. Wow, what a summary of what most of us know and have experienced. That is the power of the tongue, both to heal and to lift up and encourage, but also to destroy. I know in our family we had one person, and they'd always, before they'd say something very negative, they'd say something like, I know I shouldn't say this, but... And once you heard that, I know I shouldn't say this, but you just wanted to close your ears because you knew they were going to throw a bomb. So to help us in our reflections on the power of the tongue, both to heal and to destroy, we're going to talk with Clayton Blumseth here from Emmanuel, as well as Frank Lee. Let's start then with Clayton Blumseth and his work with Stephen Ministry. Clayton? So we're talking here in the Sunday Forum about words and how they can give life, but how they can also destroy a person's life as well. We have with us Clayton Blumseth. Thanks for joining us on the Sunday Forum.
Yeah.
You work with Stephen Ministers, and you all really stress the importance of words, how to use them well, but also how to listen to someone else's words. Tell us about the training that you are part of with our Stephen Ministers.
Okay, Stephen Ministers are trained not only to speak good words of comfort, but also to listen attentively, I should say. A lot of times you can use words to draw out the care receiver to get them to talk about their troubles. And in doing that, you have active listening, so to speak. You don't try to formulate a response while you're listening. You're listening to what they are saying and what the nuances of their body and how they're reacting to what they're saying. And all of that is good listening and good care receiving.
Clayton, it's interesting to think that you can be trained to speak well, but sometimes you have to be trained to listen well. We always want to talk, right?
Exactly, yeah. A lot of times, while you're listening, you're formulating what you want to say, and that is not always a good thing. You have to listen truly to what they are saying and be involved in what they're saying in order to make a good response, and sometimes no response is necessary.
One last question, Clayton, because I've heard this from you and I've heard it from other Stephen Ministers. Some say that the training that they receive in Stephen Ministry has really helped them just in their normal daily life, in their marriage, in their families, with their friends. Has that been your experience as well?
Very much so. Yeah, we have Stephen Ministers. Every month we have meetings and we talk about our caregiving, and those that don't have a care receiver at the time will talk about how they use Stephen Ministry in their daily life. And the stories that they tell are just marvelous, that it's just a part of your life that once you've had the training.
So once again, Clayton, thanks for joining us on the Sunday Forum, for sharing the wisdom from Stephen Ministry about how words can change a life. And so now we want to talk to Frank Lee about his experience with words and the power of words. So thank you, Clayton. Now we want to hear from Frank Lee. So now I'm here with Frank Lee. It's nice to have you back on the Sunday Forum. Frank, you have had the benefit of Stephen Minister training, but also of pastoral care training. What have you discovered in your years about the power of words, both to give life and to take it away?
Pastoral care was a super course for me, and I got the privilege of having 2 quarters of it. And what they taught me was how I can begin to change my own understanding of myself, and I would really appreciate that. I was raised with a father who was typical Norwegian.
Explain that. What does that mean, a typical Norwegian?
Well, Northern Europeans, the fathers thought they had to be critical. It was almost like they were afraid if they said positive words, you'd turn into a wimp or something. I don't know. But I listened to him, and I didn't listen to my mother. And so interestingly, in pastoral care and in Stephen ministry, that got turned around, and I began to realize that it is not negative who I am, but I'm a positive person, and I could be free to love and give myself. So words are extremely important, and that's what's been important for me.
Now, I had a German father who said around the table, it's better to be seen than heard.
Yeah.
We were not allowed to talk around the table. I think that was his way of controlling. But words mattered. And I think some of the training we receive in words, it's positive and negative, come from the home. But what have you learned since the home that you'd say would be the most important insight in how you use words or how you don't use certain words?
I think the word that I am sharing with the world is that I love you, I care for you, and you're important. And I do that with words, but also with actions. And my experience is that people want to be loved, they want to be affirmed, and so that affirmation brings life and wholeness, and their whole life is enriched.
So one last thought, and then I'll let you go, Frank. Are there any words, either positive or negative, that have had effect on you, but words that you heard back when you were smaller that you still carry with you, either positive or negative?
I was fat as a child, and so I, even today, notice that I put on pounds, and I don't like it, and I see myself as fat, which is not true. I'm not fat. Maybe you could lose some weight, but it's just, it's in there. And so to get rid of it, I have to talk to myself all the time.
All right. Well, as we say, change your words. You can change a life, and that life that you might change might be your own. Thanks
Absolutely.
for joining us on the Sunday Forum, Frank.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Frank. And we've heard the positives, the insights into speech from both Clayton and Frank, and yet you know yourselves what a role speech, positive and negative, has had in your own lives. I mean, how do we train ourselves? How do we train our kids, our grandkids, in good speech that lifts up and encourages, which can change a life, but also to avoid negative speech, which can ruin a life? Let me just read from Proverbs. I have a list here of how many texts from Proverbs deals with this idea of language, both positive and negative. Let me first start with the positive speech, just going from these Proverbs quote. Proverbs 10:11, the mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life. Very beautiful. Proverbs 12:18, the tongue of the wise brings healing. Proverbs 12:25, anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down, but a good word makes him glad. Proverbs 15:1, a soft answer turns away wrath. Proverbs 15:4, a gentle tongue is a tree of life. Proverbs 15:23, a word in season, how good it is. Proverbs 16:24, gracious words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and health to the body. Proverbs 25:11, a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver. In other words, it's like a fine jewel. And Proverbs 25:15, a soft tongue will break a bone. In other words, a soft tongue is your best defense. Now, those are the positive quotes from Proverbs on how to use speech, but oh boy, Proverbs also mentions the negative. Proverbs 6, 16 to 19. A lying tongue is a false witness which breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among brothers. Proverbs 10:11. A mouth of the wicked conceals violence. 10:19. When words are many, transgression is not lacking. Oh boy. Proverbs 11:9. With his mouth, the godless man would destroy his neighbor. How often have we experienced that? Proverbs 12:18. Rash words are like thrusting swords. Proverbs 15:4. The perverseness in speech, all right, it breaks the spirit. Proverbs 16:27 to 28. A whisperer separates close friends. A whisperer here is the way Proverbs talks about a gossiper. And some of us just love gossip, but we know the negative downstream effects of gossip. Proverbs 17:9. He who repeats a matter separates close friends. Proverbs 18:6 to 7. A fool's lips walk into a fight. His mouth is his ruin. Proverbs 18:8. The words of a whisperer, again, a gossiper, is like a delicious morsel. Proverbs 26:20. For lack of wood, the fire goes out, and where there is no whisperer, quarreling ceases. Wow. In Proverbs 26:28, a lying tongue hates his victims, and a flattering mouth works ruins. All right, that's just how Proverbs deals with this power of speech. We'd like to have you bring your wisdom about speech. How, if we can train speech, if we can change our words, we can change a life. And the life we change might not just be our friends or our family or neighbors. It might be our life as well. Come to the Sunday Forum as we talk about the power of words to give or take away life. Thank you for joining us on the Sunday Forum. Bye-bye now.